Okay, good evening and welcome to the Littleton Board of Selectmen meeting for Monday, May 13th, 2019. I'm Paul Glavy, Chairman of the Board of Selectmen, at least for the next few minutes. I'll read the proposed agenda and then we'll move forward with the items scheduled. First of all, at 6:30 or thereabouts, organization, pledge of allegiance, annual elections of chair, vice chair, and clerk, read mail. 6:40, various Board of Selectmen scheduling and procedural items involving our meeting schedule, goal-setting process, review of Selectmen's policies and regulations, town board annual appointment process. 7 o'clock, public input, members' updates. 7:05, department and board updates, including EEA Planning Assistance Grant with the Planning Department, Public Works, FY20 transfer station fees, Police Department presenting on behalf of and representatives of Castle Rock filming. 7:15, the public hearing. The applicant has withdrawn the application. Anthony?
Yes,
correct?
that's correct.
Yeah, okay, so that's withdrawn without prejudice at that time. 7:30, we have a joint meeting with the Finance Committee and the School Committee to review with our auditors, Justy and Hingston, the FY18 audit. 8 o'clock, May 6th, 2019 annual and special town meetings recap. Number of items there, articles we need to take further action on. 8:25, update from our interim town administrator. 8:26, guess it's gonna be a short update, Anthony.
That's it. That's all I need. 57 seconds.
Minutes, and we do have a couple of packs of minutes, and then at 8:30, we're scheduled to go into an executive session with our marijuana working group, which includes a couple of members of the planning board as well as town council to discuss purposes are, what again are the purposes? It's the
Review submissions?
yeah, but I'm just the legal justifications. What is some confidential information in there that we're
We have to security,
yeah, security and okay,
Security,
gotcha.
yeah.
Okay, after which time we will adjourn. So with that, I would like to ask the Madam Clerk to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, on to the annual election, although I would say very briefly, but very sincerely as well, what a pleasure it's been to serve as chair for the past year. It's obviously a very momentous year, a lot going on in the town, in the town hall especially, with Keith's retirement and Bonnie moving on and other things going on. And yet, we accomplished a lot, I think, as a town this year, and we did so working with a lot of other boards. We did so supported by terrific staff. I spent a lot of time over the past year working hand in hand with Anthony, our interim town administrator, and my thanks to everybody, but especially to my board colleagues. You've made it a very satisfying year, and I think, as evidenced by the many successes we had last week at town meeting, this board and the town hopefully are in sync, and we're doing good things. So,
Thank you.
all right, and with that, I am happy to open the nominations for chair of the Board of Selectmen, who gets to sit right here in the middle momentarily. So,
I'll nominate Selectman Knox as chair.
I'll second that.
okay, the motion's been made by Selectman DeCoste, seconded by Selectman Gerbig to nominate Selectman Knox to serve as chair for the upcoming year. Any further nominations? Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Thank you. Joe? Don't forget your name today.
Do a presentation again.
For the people in Venezuela, this is how you do a peaceful turnover of government, right? So far. It's only been a couple minutes.
Vice chair's contentious.
Thank you, board, for that. We'll move right on to having nominations for the vice chair for the Board of Selectmen for this upcoming year. And I will open up for nominations.
I'll nominate Selectman Napoli, vice chair.
Second.
Been nominated second for Selectman Napoli to be vice chair. Any other nominations? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Congratulations.
Thank you.
Now, open nominations for the office of our clerk.
I'll nominate Selectman Gerbic as our clerk.
Second that.
It's been nominated and seconded to have Chase Gerbic as our clerk for this year. All those, any discussion? Any other nominations? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Congratulations. Okay, now, moving on, read the mail.
Congratulations, Mr. Chairman. Just one thing for the mail packet. It's the Littleton Common Revitalization Form-Based Code Teach-In session that's going to be held this Thursday, May 16th at 6 p.m. It'll be right here in this room. It will be televised by LCTV. It's expected to go 6 to 8 o'clock. I think this is a great opportunity for those to become familiar with form-based coding, see how buildings and parcels lay out. That's what it says, draft prototypes for the commons, so I think this is an exciting opportunity to learn more about it. So and that's this Thursday, May 16th at 6 p.m. in room 103. And that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Moving on, Selectmen's meeting schedule for the next 3 to 4 months. Has everyone looked at that?
Sure, so these are the dates that I have proposed. They're right in line with what we did this past year. The only thing I do want to mention, it was in your packet, on June 6th, the planning board has invited the Board of Selectmen to join them for what they will have 2 presentations. It's here. One is on the Littleton Common Revitalization Project, and the other is the commuter rail transit project the state's gonna come in. So those are 2 good opportunities to hear more about those projects on June 6th. But these are the dates that we're proposing to take us right through September.
Any discussion by our board members?
I have a bit of a question mark for me on August 5th, but I wouldn't propose changing the date, just to note that may or may not be.
Similar note on July 22nd, but I'll echo.
On the 22nd.
Yeah.
We can always change it when we get closer.
Yeah.
So do we want to make a motion on what's presented there and make changes as needed?
I think that's probably best. Well, maybe we look at the July 22nd, I think,
There's two.
I can guarantee that I'm not gonna be there, Cindy's gonna be
Yeah.
coming as well.
Right.
A week earlier, a week later, right?
Yeah, we have, I mean, then we would have the 15th or the 29th to work.
Well, if you're not gonna be around on the 5th, Chase, we could do the 15th and the 29th and get rid of both the 22nd of July and the 5th of August. See what I did there?
That's, it's like you're still the chair. Sorry. No, this
No,
is-
are you saying just get rid of one of the meetings completely?
No, well, no, take both of the ones that had
Slide
a
'em.
conflict.
Go the opposite week.
Yeah, and go the 15th of July and the 29th of July and get rid of the 22nd of July and the 5th of August.
All right.
That should work.
So does anyone want to make a motion for those dates?
We're in July 1. Down 15th? Yeah. 29th?
Mhm.
So we were gonna bump August 5th?
Yep,
It's only a week out from, right?
right.
Isn't that what your proposal was?
Yeah, so there'd be 3 meetings in July and 1 in August at this point. But the one in July would be July 29th. July 8th, 15th, and 29th, August 19th. That's what I had suggested.
Yeah.
Okay. 3 meetings in July?
No, Well, that's true, we could just do the 8th and the 15th and then go to the 12th and 19th, but you're gonna have a month in between, you know, it might be two different, either way, you're gonna have a couple week,
We don't necessarily have to move the 5th for me, I'm 50/50 on it. So or at least that's what Megan tells me.
Should get you running a marathon.
Not in August, thank you very much.
So what says the board?
It's the pleasure. I think we said it, forget it, and then kind of go forward and
right,
hope for the
well,
best.
which was it, that or the, whatever, make a motion, Mr. Selectman, member.
Mr. Member, Mr. Man. The 24th to the 15th is 3 weeks. All right, I'll move the Board of Selectmen vote to schedule the following Board of Selectmen meetings for the dates indicated at 6:30 PM in room 103, Shattuck Street Building, June 10th to 24th, July 15th to 29th, August 5th and 19th, September 9th to 23rd, 2019.
Second.
Moved in second for those dates, all those, any other discussion? Seeing none, all's in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That's done. 2B is goal setting. It's our annual time to sit back and review some of the goals we had in the past and certain goals we want to set off for the future, taking into account what accomplishments have been made by the board, and maybe some of the things that we didn't really get to. Every year, there are topics that sometimes get put aside because of other issues that come up. So we need to set a date for the preliminary, and Anthony, do we want to try to get you what our goals are so it can be set up?
Well, that's how it's been done in the past, so it was an opportunity for the selectmen to forward the goals to the town administrator's office. We compile the matrix, send it back for review, and then discuss it at a meeting. So that might make things move along.
I'd suggest we forward this along to Nina to let her, I mean, I think, I'm sure she's seen this,
Yeah.
yeah. Just see if she has any input on that. That being said, in the past, and in this, I think we cleared that up last year, was, to my mind, there was a little too much merging of what some of the board members' goals were and some of the department head, the administrative functions were, and I think it works best for our purposes when it's clean and you can look at it and see the things that we're supposed to be responsible for doing. Maybe we should have a parallel list of what the administrator's office
Right.
goals are for the year too, and make that distinction. But other than that, I don't know. If you're looking for a date, it's the 20th of June is, at that point, Nina will have been on board for about 3 weeks. And
We look for the 20th of June by that date that we have everything to the.
no, I'm saying a meeting date, so we probably want to get them in a week earlier than that, maybe.
Yeah, it's the 24th.
Is it the 24th? I mean,
Yeah.
okay,
24th.
sorry.
Yeah.
So have them into the administrator's office by the 17th?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So were you looking for like department heads to maybe submit some ideas with
Well,
them
well, I mean,
goals and then compare?
I think that, not specifically, it's just, it was more of the, Keith kind of merged his own goals with ours and put it on the same list, but I don't want to discourage the administrator's office from having their goals.
Right.
I think it just ought to be on a separate sheet, but maybe give her some, see what she thinks about doing that.
But I do think it's important to solicit input
Yeah.
from department heads,
Absolutely.
so that we are all collectively, as a town, moving in the same direction.
I agree.
And historically, what's been a little bit opaque has been the goals, the administration's goals that come through the administrator's office. Are those the administrator's goals, or are those a reflection of our department heads and their goals? So I would really like to see more transparency there. I'd really like to know, what does Alicia want to accomplish? and the
Sure,
folks in-
yeah, so I mean, I guess that's supporting what Chuck says too, maybe the administrator's office ought to solicit that from the various departments and then, bring it up in a unitary document that spells out who's what, who's asking for what,
Okay.
Would you look to do that the same date? Have it ready for the same date?
Yeah, if we're looking to have them submitted by the 17th of
By the
June,
17th, yeah.
then we should ask that because I'm assuming that's gonna be compiled,
Yes.
matrix formed, and then all of it, including, like right now, it has who the champions are, you know, maybe submitted by, another column gets added,
Right.
but submitted by, and then we know that it's from Alicia, to use your example.
Okay.
I would,
Yeah.
I would say that we do ask for that by the
So in a
17th.
month seems like a reasonable timeframe
think so.
to ask staff to turn around the project, create that rubric.
Now, is it necessary, or have we always had a public hearing when it's all done?
With what?
Have we always had a public hearing?
Yeah,
It was initiated a few years ago, right?
I'm not quite sure we did it. I was trying to look to see if we actually ended up having it last
I
year.
don't think we had a public hearing last year. I thought our board decided that everything was done in public and there was no need to have a public hearing.
Yeah, you might be right.
I think it was just the opportunity to just let people know that it's gonna be discussed if they wanna
Right.
be here, but I don't know.
Just by scheduling it, we're effectively doing that anyway.
Yeah.
Right.
And make it clear we're inviting input on those dates.
And it'd be a meeting just for that purpose, so, you know.
Oh, is that the intent here now?
That's on the 20th,
24th.
24th,
it's on the regularly scheduled meeting,
Oh, is that what you wanna do?
yeah.
I believe so.
I think right now we should target it for a regularly scheduled meeting,
Yeah.
and then if it backs up and looks like it's gonna be a scheduling disaster.
So I'm sure on the 24th, we'll probably be dealing with town board appointments and any other end of the year stuff too.
It usually takes us 2 meetings to do the town appointment.
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, the goals are due on the 17th, we're gonna meet.
17th, get them back to you guys by the 20th, and then we'll discuss it on the 24th.
And you'll do what you always do best and remind us.
Certainly.
So do we have a motion for that?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right. 2C, selectmen's regulations and policies. It's something that has been discussed upon, that sometimes there's some overlapping things, it's a good chance for us to go through it. I think Cindy,
Yeah, so
you had a suggestion.
I did
that's-
have a suggestion. So in my travels over the course of the year, I realized that some of our policies aren't aligning with the town's policies, just here and there. Either they're just off a little bit or the language is different. So to me, there's no sense in us reviewing the regulations and policies and making changes to them if they don't mirror the same on the town side. So one of the things that I thought might be helpful is if we hired an intern, maybe got a college student, a paralegal student, or a law student to come in for free, and just review the regulations and policies on the selectmen side and the town side, and just figure out what the discrepancies are initially, and then we can go from there. I know that the town employees, I believe, had worked with, I don't know if it was you, Anthony, or Keith, and had some suggestions about policies that weren't really working or could use some revisions. And that would be like a later phase to this process, but I think initially, we have to figure out what the discrepancies are, because we can't, if we change them on our side and they don't mirror what's on the town side, it's kind of a waste of time. So,
Victory.
And too, Mr. Chair, Cindy and I had a chance to meet with Nina on Friday, and we made it clear that addressing this whole issue, pile of related issues was a priority, because when, like, for instance, when Chuck and I agreed last August to take on the chore, I mean, what we got was like, New York City
Right,
telephone book,
right.
when they used to have telephone books,
Yep.
It occurred to me also, since that time, that just how we organize it, make it more relevant, and at least fall into three categories, is the stuff that departments do that affect their relationship with the public, hours at the transfer station, or fees for this, that, or the other, that really don't have anything to do with us. And then there's the things that departments do between themselves or internally, policies on, you know, documents and finances and stuff. And then there's the stuff that actually is a board policy, you know, on something we're involved in. So just the simple act of kind of dividing them into those categories would reduce them into meaningful sized documents that somebody might actually read or reference from time to time, because in its current form, that's just, you know, if you
Right.
remember something's in there, good luck, otherwise you're never gonna know.
Right. So,
So what would be the proposal? Would the proposal be to seek someone to do that and not conduct the annual review on the 10th?
I don't think we're in a position to do it that soon, but I would say
Right.
maybe, you know, and Cindy brought that up with Nina
Right,
too, as
so
far
what-
as maybe
right.
she can get something
so
going.
Nina asked me for some examples of the discrepancies, so I was gonna pull those together just to kind of show what I'm speaking of. So I could pull those together. I don't know if you wanna have those for the 10th, or how you wanna proceed from here.
Well, I didn't know that, you were saying that try to hire someone first and just postpone this until that's done? If you want to bring your discrepancies that you
Well, I
found.
think I need to identify specifically what the issues are, and have some examples, and then we'd have to craft it somehow and put out a request for an intern.
Right.
So you could still keep your June 10th date,
Mhm.
and that'll be an opportunity when, you know, be a board that you can have some discussion about, and then we can agenda it again at another time.
Right,
At
and then
least
maybe have
start
some,
a
Or
like-
at
little
least
bit more
maybe act,
dialogue.
if we are gonna do an intern, we can act on that piece of it that night. you
Right,
know,
exactly.
something
Could have some examples and some language crafted for the meeting on the 10th.
So, over the course of the year or the years, we've raised policies that we've suggested to keep in the past, and we may have done it a couple times with you, Cindy and Anthony. Where we've said, that's a policy we need to review.
Yeah,
Right.
So I don't know if there's a document that Keith was keeping where there was a running list of, oh yeah, we gotta take a look at that. Maybe we could reach out to him and say, did you have something that, you know, a review list or something?
that's a good
Because
idea.
we
Because it was
made those
discussed in our,
suggestions
yeah,
over the course of meetings where we said,
Right.
hey, we need to take a look at that, make a note of that.
right,
And I'm not sure that we ever have revisited that list.
right.
And that might be a good jumping off point for hiring someone, say, okay, listen, we know that these things are there.
Right.
Go find the other things that are equally inconsistent that we
Right.
haven't yet stumbled
Right,
across
right.
as inconsistent.
Yeah,
If I can make a suggestion, and I don't think any one of us has the bandwidth or the ability to do this, so I think hiring somebody like that is a good idea. What the school committee has done in the past, this has been a policy committee, and it started out with 2 people, and it was myself and Darrell Baker, and Darrell Baker was, frankly, he flew along with it. It was actually myself, Darrell Baker, and Kelly Clenchy, and Darrell just, he dove into it, you know, 100%.
right.
So you're saying we should hire
He-
Darryl?
I think it'd be worthwhile.
Is Darryl here to-
He's yelling at the TV right now.
He's dialing in. But he had a very systematic way of doing it, and he used the Mass Association of School Committees baseline policies, which we could use the MMA's baseline policies as well to kind of benchmark, where are we at with that? What town meeting votes have we taken to change these policies and regulations? So I think it's a little more in-depth to dive into ours because it's
Right,
all-reaching.
Yeah.
But to have a system in place so that we know that we're consistent, and we put it on the agenda every year, but frankly,
We don't need to do it.
back burner, we don't do
Right.
much, if anything,
Right.
with it. So, other than saying, hey, we need to take a look at that, let's review that, we do our review.
And we all find like one thing, and that's as far as it goes.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that is as
exactly.
far as it goes.
Now, operationally, I know one of our policies is to review and accept these policies on an
Right.
annual basis. Do we need to accept these on an interim basis until we've sort of gone through the revision
No,
process?
so the policy will still stay in effect until you do any amendments or adjustments, so we'll still live by, it's just like living by the collective bargaining agreement until you do a new one, even if it's a year.
So what kind of motions do we go for? Keep the 10th
I don't think we need a motion today.
Yeah,
We'll just schedule it for, I'll put it back on the agenda for the
for the
10th.
10th.
And hopefully, Cindy, you're gonna take the lead on the interest, you might find that certain colleges have already, you know, they're doing that stuff right now.
Right, yep. Yeah, I'll do that.
So we're all set with that, 2C?
Mhm.
I'm just gonna move that out.
Mhm.
All right, 2D has to do with annual appointments.
Let me see it up for you. Mr. Chairman?
And this is a public notice that has to be read.
It doesn't have to be read, it's just to let the board know that we've went out and advertised, the legal notice has been put in the newspaper quite a while ago. We also have an updated request on the town's website and our social media pages. It should have been up there as well, so it's trickling in very, very slowly. But it's still looking for some volunteers for some boards.
Mr. Chairman, could I, just looking over the list of the committee, I know we went through this exercise before about trying to get rid of committees that aren't viable, and almost all of the, I think all of these are active, with the exception of, I don't really believe we have a Littleton Common Committee
That's the one I don't
anyway,
think we
because
do.
essentially, the master
talked
plan
about that last
implementation,
year, yeah.
We just talked about that.
And especially since that's the focus, or one of the focus of the master plan implementation committee right
Right.
now, I think we probably ought to just strike that one.
I think we might have.
And it stayed on this
It
list
must
for
have
some.
just stayed on the list,
Right.
so we should
Yeah,
cross-reference
that's
what we
we were
did.
just talking about
Okay.
in this meeting.
Yeah,
I was the one that made that motion. I think I made that motion date all the way back to 2013, because I made it before the 300th
Right.
anniversary. And in all actuality, I think the committee met 3 times and never met again, so you're right.
right.
Okay. Well, we'll try one more time. Everything else looks in order, though. These are all active groups.
Mhm.
So, I mean, that, you know, that's a success for in and of itself. A couple of years ago, that list would have included about 5 or 6 dormant
Yeah.
committees that never really,
Right.
We need volunteers, though, we
Yes.
still need some volunteers.
Pays well.
Because we have a number of ones. We just gonna encourage people to go to the website and look at it, or do we want to make it public that it actually is?
what do you want, to read a list, Joe? Well, go ahead if you want.
It'll be the town clerk's job.
The board,
The board?
not the town.
Yeah.
You don't tell
Town
town
board's clerk, if you want to do it. I just, by saying just look on the website, I'd like to let people know what's actually.
Because that might strike somebody's fancy, yeah.
Jason, if you want to read through it.
Sure, can do that. So the list, rather than read the entire.
No, that's good. Just what's,
Right, so Agricultural Commission, 1 member with agricultural experience and 2 citizen at large members. Agricultural Working Group, 1 member with an indefinite term. Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee, 1 member, again with an indefinite term. Clean Lakes Committee, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 different members, 2 associated with Lake Mattawanakee, 1 associated with Long Lake, 2 associated with Speck Pond, 1 with Mill Pond, another with Long Lake,
It's an alternate.
yeah, another with Mill Pond, and a citizen at large member. Some of those are permanent positions, some of those are alternates. Community Preservation Committee, 1 member for a term expiring in 2022. Conservation Commission, 2 members for a term expiring in 2022. Council on Aging, 1 member for 2020 and 2 members expiring in 2022. Cultural Council, 1 member with a term expiring in 2021, and 4 members with terms expiring in 2022. Disability Commission, 1 member with a term expiring in 2022, and 1 member with a term expiring in 2021. Historical Commission, 2 members for terms expiring in 2022. Littleton Affordable Housing Trust Fund Board of Trustees, 2 members with specific experience in the fields of real estate, housing, architecture, social services, etc., with terms expiring in 2022. We're going to skip over the Common Committee. Littleton Community Television Advisory Committee, 1 member with a term expiring in 2021, 3 members with terms expiring in 2022. Master Plan Implementation Committee, 1 member with a term expiring in 2022. Open Space and Recreation Implementation Committee, 1 member for an indefinite term. Permanent Municipal Building Committee, 1 member with a term expiring in 2022, and 1 member with a term expiring in 2023. Shade Tree Committee, 2 citizen-at-large members with indefinite terms, Sustainability Committee, 5 members, indefinite terms, Taxation Aid Committee, 1 citizen-at-large member, expiring 2022, Transportation Advisory Council, 1 citizen-at-large member with an indefinite term, and Zoning Board of Appeals, 4 members with terms expiring 2022.
I think it's probably worth noting that a lot of those committees may have incumbents that are interested in serving again, so they're not all necessarily immediate vacancies, but they're not guaranteed either.
Right.
So do we need a motion to conduct these appointments on the June 10th and 24th?
That requires a motion just to schedule it, right? That's,
Or just a schedule meeting.
yeah,
We
So we don't need a
schedule-
motion?
I don't think we need to.
no, it's just a schedule item.
I'll just make a comment on just the last one, the zoning board of appeals, 4 members with terms expiring 2022. Most boards, we try to stagger the appointments, and Cheryl, maybe you can help me out here.
I think that that's a bunch of the alternates.
Okay.
I'm not sure. I would just start to pull up on my phone whether or not I was scheduled to reappoint. I'm trying to remember. But our board's a very stable board. We tend to stay long-term. And that's a good thing because it's a little
Take some
tricky.
time, yeah.
And takes a long time.
But
to
are
learn
the
how to-
alternates, do you know, are they also staggered as Chuck said? or-
I thought so. We gotta remember, we're 9 people on the board.
Right.
With the alternates, 5 voting members and 4 alternates, and maybe Ms. Gould remembers who is up for
Do?
reappointment this year.
Put her on the spot.
I am.
Are you? Well, we don't want
There's
you.
3 members, there are 3 members that were listed in the email that I saw. I can't remember who the 4th was. I think it was an alternate.
Was it me?
No.
Oh.
So,
Jeff, or,
I don't know why it's just happenstance that depending on when a resignation happens,
Well, but
there's,
if that's the case, then they would be finishing off a term and the staggering part ought to be re-entered. I just wonder whether they may all be due for appointment this year, but they may not all have an end date of the 22nd, you know? That might be bear looking into again.
I think that is worth looking into, and that's one that just stuck out at me, but it might be worth looking at for all the appointments.
Right.
So we do have the control sheet that'll tell you that, but we're in the process of looking at that right now.
Okay. If they all say 2022, though, we want to take a look at that.
They're staggered, I'm looking at them now, they're
staggered.
staggered over 3 years. yeah.
But there's 3 for
Well,
2022.
you're faster on your phone than I am.
I don't even see a 2022, so I don't know where that came from, but I see
19. It'll show up as 19.
2019 with Cheryl and Alan Bell. It's up in 2019, and Mark
Saucier.
Saucier and Rod Stewart. Then you have a couple in 2020,
So we need an alternate for him.
Sue and Yates are in 2020, and then you have a couple in 2021. Kathleen O'Connor
So I do have to come in?
and
It's a softball.
Cheryl's not up for a while.
Well, to Chuck's point, maybe that should be looked at, the actual veracity of all the.
Yeah, but
It is a stable board, isn't it, for a long
It's a
time?
very stable board, and that's a good thing, because the issues get very complicated. And it's nice to have the history sometimes, the same things reoccur and come back to us again and again, and the same issues come back to us again and again. So it's good to have continuity there.
Would you say it's become more stable since Joe got off the board, or?
That was a long time ago.
Wow.
That was
I never-
2006.
I think I served with you for 2 months,
Yeah, a short period of time, yeah.
so I couldn't possibly.
Okay.
Yeah, Cheryl said something to
So
me.
we have to
I
get
left.
Cheryl on the board of selectmen?
And we came back.
All right, so there's a little bit of homework for you, Anthony, there, I guess.
We'll work with town clerk.
Great.
Okay. We're now open for public input. If anyone has anything, I just ask you to identify yourself and give your address. Is there any public input?
Can I come up front?
Sure.
Thank you. Demetra Taylor, 115 Taylor Street, Chair of the Reuben Hoare Library Board of Trustees.
Just direct your comments to
Oh,
the chairman.
okay,
The
okay.
chairman, yeah, please. Sorry, Mr.
First off, I'd like to say congratulations, Selectman Knox and Selectman Levy for your reelection. And I'm here tonight to speak on behalf of the Reuben Hoare Library Board of Trustees. We would like to thank all those in the community who came out to vote in last Monday's town meeting. 82% voted in favor of Article 5, which will give us funding for a detailed library design. Residents have proven that Littleton is a community that understands the need for a larger, ADA-compliant and energy-efficient library that will support our town for decades to come. We are now one step closer to a new library building and accepting a $5.8 million grant this July as we move into the detailed design phase. I also wanted to inform the community about our upcoming design sessions. If you are interested, we hope you will attend and help shape the design of our new library. We have one scheduled this Wednesday, May 15th, from 7:30 to 9 p.m. at the police station, and another one on Tuesday, May 28th, 7 to 9 p.m. at the police station. We want you to look for our info sessions on our library project updates coming later this summer and in the fall. We also have a book sale this Thursday, May 16th through Saturday, May 18th. And also, we will be seeing you at Fay Park during third Thursdays this summer. So, thank you.
I just want to, before we take off, just want to thank you, congratulate you. It's quite a tribute for what you've done, you and the people, everyone that's involved, to be this organized for that many years in a row, to have this happen. 82%, Mr. Glady was sitting next to me doing all the figures during town meeting, and we were just amazed at what the vote was, so I want to congratulate you on that.
Thank you. This has been a long-term project, 10 years now and running, and we're still working hard and we're raising money. We've raised over $650,000, and we're well on our way to our 1 million fundraising mark. So, thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
Anyone else for public input? Seeing none, I'll turn to our members, and I'll start to my right with Cindy.
Hi. Certainly, Mr. Chair. So just a few updates. I just want to remind people that the Memorial Day Parade is fast approaching. And in preparation for Memorial Day, they will be placing flags at West Lawn Cemetery on Saturday, May 25th, starting at 8 a.m. So any volunteers who wish to participate and help place flags on veterans' graves at West Lawn Cemetery are more than welcome to do so. Also, the Memorial Day Parade will take place on Monday, May 27th. If you would like to march in the parade, but you would prefer to ride in a vehicle throughout the parade, there are vehicles available to assist you. You can contact John Borowski, the Littleton Veterans Agent, directly at 978-540-2485, or you can email him at jborowski@littletonma.org, and he will help arrange for a ride for you. Otherwise, if you're planning to march in the parade, please be at the Donlands parking lot at 9 a.m. The parade steps off at 9:30 a.m. The other thing I wanted to mention is, if you haven't noticed, the wonderful patriotic banners that have been displayed on King Street and Great Road. The Friends of Littleton Veterans are still selling those banners. All the proceeds are going to benefit the update of the Edgar P. Romley Veterans Corner. So if you're interested in purchasing a banner or sponsoring a banner for a veteran, you can go to www.friendsoflittletonsveterans.com, and there's directions there on how to order a banner. And I wanted to give the board an update as well on the Veterans Corner project. That is scheduled to begin immediately following Memorial Day. They're going to be removing the plantings surrounding the Veterans Corner, and Comer Monument from Lowell will be coming in. They're going to clean the existing monuments and the bronze plaques, and that's going to be the beginning of the update of the Veterans Corner. There's going to be 2 additional monuments installed. We have there's over 380 names of veterans to be added to the 2 new monuments, and the project is slated to be completed by Veterans Day of this year of November 2019. So we're looking forward to a big celebration The veterans have waited a long time for that monument to be updated, and they're very excited about it. The other thing I wanted to mention is the Littleton Station study, or the Littleton Station Working Group, is created a survey, and it's on the planning board's website. It's at www.townoflittletonma.org. If you go to the planning board tab, there's a survey under news and announcements. They're just looking for your input about Littleton Station down by the Taylor Street, Foster Street area. There's specific questions that the consultant has designed to get the community's input. The more input we have about what you'd like to see in that part of town, the better. So we hope that people will participate in the survey. And the final thing that I wanted to mention is, and I don't know if one of my other fellow selectmen was going to mention, the Town of Littleton bus tour that the Historical Society is putting on seems like a lot of fun. There were a few seats still available. Reservations are required. The bus tour is Saturday, May 18th from 10 to 11:30 a.m. And it's going to go throughout historical neighborhoods and other special historical landmarks in the town of Littleton, which seems like a lot of fun. So if anyone is interested in signing up for that, they can go to littletonbustour@gmail.com and sign up. That's all.
Just one small thing to note, on June 1st, PTA is doing a fundraiser, a 5K fundraiser that goes from Russell Street up the hill to here, around, looks like around King Street to Foster Street, loops back down Mill Lane to Warren Street, and then back to King Street. So 5K color run for raising money for the PTA. So hopefully it's nice weather and folks enjoy getting all sorts of colors thrown at them as they run on 5Ks. So sign-ups for that are still ongoing, and it's June 1st in the afternoon, I think 2 o'clock, thereabouts, don't quote me on that.
Staying in the PTA realm, Friday night, there was a fundraiser. Trivia night was Friday night. It was held at the VFW.
Nice hat.
I got to wear a top hat as the MC, but there were 11 teams that showed up. It was a great fundraiser, raised a lot of money. The winning team was a repeat team. I can't remember any of the names of the guys that were on the team. But I especially want to thank Mary Sueda, Margie Raffi, and Colleen Feltus for organizing and then putting the whole thing together. And there was 3 teams from the high school staff, and there was a number of residents that came out and supported the Littleton High School PTA. Also wanted to, at town meeting, there were some folks that had some concerns about the roads, and based upon one of the articles, the Chapter 90 article. Chris is going to put together a presentation in the future, but Anthony's got up on the screen right now. We do have an app. I mentioned it on the town meeting floor. There's an app that we pay for, and residents can sign up for it. It's See-Click-Fix. If you go to the website and you click on this link, you can, if you run over a pothole, you can take a picture of it right there and to be geo-mapped, and it goes right to the DPW, and it tells them where that is, and then based upon the information that you input, they'll give you updates as they create work orders, and you can see what the progress is for that. So that's a great tool for us to have, and it's allowed Chris and his team to really stay on top of a lot of road fixes and any number of things, street signs down, whatever it happens to be. So I appreciate Chris and his team doing that, and Chris is going to do a presentation, as well as I think you're gonna update us on the schedule. That came up at town meeting, so if maybe you could enter into that a little bit as well. Also, wanted to kind of make people aware, and I see the chairman of the Clean Lakes Committee is here as well, Mr. Folsom. So I'm not going to do it justice, but there is going to be some activity down at Long Lake for the diverter, and you can correct me, which may have an impact on the water level. So in talking to the water department and talking to some folks at Clean Lakes, and Park and Rec, frankly, because they'll be impacted at Long Lake. Thought it'd be important just to let people know, because didn't want people to think that it was being done under the cloak of darkness, and all of a sudden, the water level lowered by 6 inches or what have you. So, John, if you have something, Mr. Chairman, if I may, just kind of yield the floor a little bit to Mr. Folsom.
John Folsom, Chairman of the Clean Lakes Committee. Corey was gonna be here tonight, but he's got kid duty, so that's fair. I understand that the lake leveler was just installed within the past hour. It was completed. And the whole notion is, if you are not familiar with this, is there's a dam at the outlet to Long Lake. There's no inlet, and we have found ourselves in a situation where over the past, say 20 years, this beaver dam keeps getting reinforced and actually redoubled, and the lake level keeps rising. We've lost large trees that were once well up on the shoreline. They get, the roots are undermined by the water. They fall in the water, so we've got, 80-foot trees from that were once well established on the shoreline. They're in the water now and degrading. The beach has been getting narrower and narrower, especially as shallow as it is. 6 inches of rise is going to give us maybe 6 or 8 feet of beach that we have lost over these years. We estimate that I think the lake, some 30 years ago, was at least 18, maybe 20 inches shallower, and it's all this beaver activity. So we find that as beavers are natural, it's not natural. It's not the historic level of the lake. So we have contracted to have a lake leveler installed. It's a pipe that pierces the dam. Doesn't remove the dam, because the dam will just be reestablished by the beavers. They industrious like that. But it pierces the dam, and the outflow is set at a certain height where we want the lake level. That can be adjusted over time. We can lower it 6 inches now. We can lower it another 6 inches by the end of the year. We'd like to get down about a foot just to see what happens. Give us a little more shoreline, get some of the weeds back out a little bit more. We are curious to see exactly how this is going to develop, because we haven't done it before. But we have noticed that with the lake getting deeper and deeper, in as much as it's a larger basin of water, I think it's become a threat to the surrounding vegetation, and also eventually septic systems and what have you. So that's been established, and I have not heard. I know that Corey was there this afternoon. He had to leave about 2:30. They hadn't gotten a mechanism of the water yet, but now I understand it's done. So we'll see over the next few weeks. I don't even know how long it's going to take to drain 6 inches. Pipe might be 8 or 10 inches wide, maybe 8, something like that, something that was manageable. Not a great deal of flow, considering the lake is 3/4 of a mile long. So we'll see how it goes. We're going to continue to monitor things. That's where we stand.
Now, is that beaver dam, is that on the far side, or the out on the road side?
It goes down past it goes out, that outlet that goes down through the Boy Scout bridge there, and heads over towards Route 2 down Goldsmith Street and Newtown Road.
That's fascinating.
It's in my backyard. So I got my sump pump ready to go.
You might have a little bit of an increased flow for a while.
Awesome. Good thing it hasn't rained in a while.
I was going to say, you probably won't notice any difference. It's just been easier for the past couple of months. Non-stop rain, but we're very excited about this. We're talking about it. I know Parks and Rec has been excited about reclaiming some of the beach, and the boat ramp has been in a situation where you can't even reach the concrete pads we had installed there years ago. So hopefully this will be getting back to some level of normalcy.
Thank you, John. I thought it was important, not only for us to be updated on it, but I've had some conversations with some folks around town, and as well as Park and Rec, and I just wanted to try to get it from the experts and let people know that changes are coming. Someone didn't pull the train.
I might add, we can reverse this process too.
Right.
So it's a question of having a little bit more flexibility.
There you go.
Thanks, John. Appreciate it coming up. That's all I had to tell you.
Okay, 3 quick items, Mr. Chairman. First off, in addition to those of us who were re-elected on Saturday, I'd like to congratulate 4 new folks, in some cases not that new, or returning folks to 3 boards in town. Jerry Portante and Delissa Laterza were elected to the planning board. Mike Zeldin was elected to the Board of Health, and Peter Barbella was elected to the Board of Assessors. Because of all the write-ins, it went so late, I probably missed some other ones, but to anybody who's new to or returning to town government, congratulations, welcome aboard.
If I may piggyback off you, Paul, real
Yeah.
quick. Matthew Nordhaus beat out somebody for Housing Authority.
Okay, well, all right, I wasn't even aware of that one. Matthew, welcome
Matthew
aboard.
had 16 votes, I had 7 votes, so
Oh,
Matthew
no.
ended up. I just thought it would be easier if I wish I'd known Matthew was going to do it, but, yeah, basically my family voted for me so that we wouldn't have to go through the process of posting it again and then reappointing me, so, figured if I was written in, and thank you, Matthew, for stepping up and,
Good, yep.
there's
Well, we
a
both
new
have
name-
served
new
on that
name.
board before. It's gratifying to work with the folks at Pine Tree Park, et cetera.
They're doing good things, and if Matthew he'll continue doing good things.
Quick Baker House update. We had a meeting this afternoon, a second meeting with some significant work done by the members over the past couple of months. So we're looking to come in, I think, with a roadmap. And, we Ed Mullen and Carolyn Mueller, Rachel Robinson, Linda Stein, done great work as far as figuring out what the costs are gonna be and what the options are for the town. And I think tentatively, if the schedule allows it, Anthony, we're probably looking to come in on the 10th of June to give an update to this board as where we stand, and perhaps even be making some proposals or give some options to the board about disposition of that building. And finally, I spoke this afternoon with someone from Congresswoman Lori Trahan's district office, and she's hoping to schedule something to come out with us first week in June and learn about our smart sewer, because they're putting together a federal infrastructure bill, and based on prior conversations with her and her office, we look like a good match, so hopefully we can put on a good show for her, but more details on that later.
That's great. Can I just ask just a question, Paul, about the Baker House? Is the intent that we fund renovations, or are we thinking that we're just gonna put it up to bid and let somebody else buy it? And
It'd be premature for me to put that on the table right now. Both of those options are being explored right now. I think what we'll probably be doing on the 10th is putting on the table what it all looks like in the form of a report, and with or without a recommendation. A little early for me to say on that, but probably with a recommendation.
if I may continue to piggyback on Paul.
It's getting kind of heavy.
Yeah, right? Usually. With the Baker property and PMBC, and there's a lot of facilities that we have in town. We approved a facilities manager 2 years ago. I'd like to see us look at that, and maybe we.
We funded too.
It's been funded for 2 years. So I think we need to take a look at that and maybe post it and get some applicants in, do some interviews, and put somebody in place and get that underway. Do comment?
Yeah, I was speaking with the representative from the PMBC, Ed Mullen, who had volunteered to work. It was gonna be a representative from the school committee, Board of Selectmen, PMBC, to help craft the position and exactly the job duties. So everybody's on the same page with that. So we were actually just having that discussion. We said the same thing, that we need to get that going, so.
Yeah, but it's something we saw as important enough to vote for it and bring it to town meeting and fund it. So I'd like to see us take some action on that. I don't know who the member of the Board of Selectmen would be that would represent us, but I think we need to decide that and get moving.
Well, I was busy.
I mean, since you're on the.
You're all over it. Yeah. Let's formalize it.
Well played, well played. I'm willing to do it, if that's gonna move the ball forward, then that's fine.
I would feel good with that. Do we need a formal motion to?
We can go by consensus, right?
Consent, yeah, I think it's fine. And then you've got names of other folks from the school committee and PMBC and,
Just Chairman Fontanelle.
okay. Sounds good.
That's fine.
Just quickly, the last thing I want to mention is Third Thursday actually starts early this year, and it's actually this Thursday. Because Fay Park is so wet, I'm not sure where the Park and Rec is going to hold it, or whether anyone's ready to work. They were planning at one point of doing it out back here, but we also have that form-based code meeting here, so I haven't heard from the Park and Rec any more information about that. So that is coming up this Thursday, and I'll let it go there. One thing I do want to mention, if there's anyone here that happens to be here for a public hearing for a transfer of all liquor beverage package store license, that was withdrawn without prejudice, so if there is anyone here for that, that was supposed to be at 7:15, that was withdrawn. And I want to ask the board, plus we're going into item number 4, A, B, and C. If possible, it would be okay with the board, I'd like to take 4C and move it to the front of this. It has to do with the police department bringing in Castle Rock filming so they could appear before us and get them out of here, so they would do on before, if that's okay with.
Well, can we work on a little bit of an extra situation, maybe? Get our SAG cards?
Cameo for the chairman.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
Chief, if you could, take the lead on this.
Absolutely.
There you go.
Mr. Chair, congratulations on the chair position, I love it. So at the
Wow,
request of the
that
board,
speaks volumes.
at the request of the board,
You
I,
loved me yesterday, all right?
this morning too, Paul. At the request of the board, there were some questions about Castle Rock and filming on Tadawon Road and Miss Crowley's residence and whatnot, and I kind of took it upon myself to bring them in so they could answer some questions for you guys. I do want to just start off by saying that they have been extremely easy to work with on my behalf. They've had great communications between Jamie Mers and Joe Straczynski, contacting me on several times a day on some small issues. But rather than me belay the issue, I'll give you guys, come on up to the front if you want, have a seat up front. Whoever wants to go, we can get you more seats up there if you want.
Yeah, come on, all right.
All of a sudden you're shy?
Yeah. Thank you, sir.
We can't get you all extra work.
Fine.
Eeny, meeny, miny.
Jim?
I welcome you all, and if possible, I'd like to have yourself, introduce yourself to the TV and to the whole board, if you would.
Hi, I'm Jamie Mers. I'm one of the assistant location managers for Castle Rock.
I'm Joe Straczynski. I'm one of the location managers. I do even episodes with my counterpart.
Hi, I'm Tim Gorman. I do the odd episodes. I'm the location manager for Castle Rock.
You can do the odd ones.
I'm the odd one. They're all a little odd, truth be told.
And I'm Jeff Dion, one of the assistant location managers.
If you could, just for the town of Littleton, a lot of people didn't even know this was going on. If you could tell the board and tell the residents exactly what is being done up onto Hadawin Road. And I'll be honest with you, I was one of the ones that had contacted the chief, because you had sent, one of you had sent a nice note out long before. I had forgotten I'd even got it, and all of a sudden that night, I was getting complaints on the phone, and I'm talking 10:30, 11:15 at night, so I was the one that was bitching, I'll be quite honest with you. But after talking to the chief has told me how well that you have worked, and that things are working out, so explain to the public and to the board exactly what's going on up there.
Well, we scouted for a location. We have one of our main characters, who's played by Tim Robbins. We needed to find a place for him to live in our Castle Rock world. So we came to Littleton. I think we worked here. I was the location manager last year or a year and a half ago on the first season. So we came here, I think we had about, 25 options. And the last minute, we chose Hadawin as our location, and we had about 5 days before we were starting filming, which is very quick to get a town involved. So I came and I came to the town hall and I said, who do I talk to? What do I do? And so they gave me a list of names, and I quickly put out an email, and Jamie was my sidekick, and we got a notice together, a letter that told people, something like this. We always we try to put out about a week before we film. Just so you know, we don't have everything written. We're only on episode 205 that we have completed scripts. So sometimes a week before you get the main script that they're gonna shoot. So we try to put out a filming notice about a week before that has our numbers on it and things like that you can call us and let us know if anything's happening. We try to tell you the times we're shooting there. We like to shoot, we shoot a 12-hour day. Now, shoot a 12-hour day, that's filming. So people come about 3 to 4 hours before that, and they stay to 3 to 4 hours after that. They come before to get everything ready, because at that time, if the call is at 7 a.m., they want to be filming at 7 a.m. We got to bring in our army, which is what we call our base camp. Our base camp is our trailers, makeup trailers, star trailers, stuff like that. Any of the semis that carry all the equipment, costumes, stuff like that, that we kind of keep away from where we're filming. It's usually on the outskirts of town. We need a big parking lot. We need a very big parking lot to park about 14 semis. So, and then we need what we call our work trucks. We need close to set. These are our camera trucks, our craft service truck, which has our snacks, our grip truck, our electric trucks. We need a few trucks that are close to our set, that they can just pull things from, if the cameraman needs something, they can pull it from the truck and get it to set. So our idea was to come and close the Hattawan, just one lane, and put people around us, and we always check with the police. Every time we go into a neighborhood, they always say, check with the chief of police. So that's what we do. And we asked if that was okay, and if we could hire local police to help us with that. And we kind of put it together in 5 days, which was really quick. And we tried to inform everyone around us. I don't think we were planning to be there so late. It wasn't that late. I think we were planning to be there till 9. We ended up being there until about 11. And, we did deal with some people who had some complaints, and I dealt with that, and I did emails. They did not think that they got a notice, which is possible. They live close enough that we thought they would have had one. We usually knock on doors, people who are very close surrounding our sets. And then we make deals for people we inconvenience. So the people across the street, we don't block driveways, but, we have to let them out to get to school, and we help with that. And, we try to help everybody who around us who kind of inconveniences what we do. So that was the first time, but now we know we're here again on May 22nd, and supposedly it's a day affair. We're not going that late, but so let me see. So May 22nd, yeah. So it looks like we have a 7 a.m. call, so they think we'll be there from about 7 a.m. to 8 p.m.
3 hours on either side of that.
Yes, yeah. So I will not come into a neighborhood before 7. If anything, I'd let them come in at 6:30, but as long as the neighbors know that we're coming in, or I asked the police chief, I said, we want to come in a little early so we're ready, but we don't rumble trucks in at 5 a.m. We don't do that kind of stuff. We try to stick to the ordinances of the town. And then by the time we clean up and get everything out, so I think we will be coming to this house. I mean, like I said, we came April 17th, I think, last time. We're coming May 22nd. So we'll probably come once or twice a month. Right now, I mean, they haven't written everything. It could be a 2-day shoot. We don't know sometimes, but right now it's all been 1 day. Sometimes what happens is they come in for a half a day. And they go, hey, we need another location. That would be great if we could pair it with this location somewhere else in Littleton. So we have some driving shots we have to do that we didn't know exactly where they would be placed. So I called up the chief and I said, hey, are there roads that, oh, there he is. All right, are there roads that could, that you can close, that we wouldn't be bothering people? It might be a night shot. We have lights in the road. He had an officer take me around. It was very nice. It took about 30 minutes and showed me some roads that we could use. So, those are some of the things that come up down the road. And if we ever do look for other properties in the township, we usually contact you first, or any town. We usually tell the chief of police, hey, we're going to be in town. We're going to be knocking on doors. People are going to call you and go, is this real or not? So we always put out this homeowner thing. So I usually, there was a list of 5 people, I think you're on it, and that I'm supposed to email every time we come. And I guess, they can spread the news or whatever. So I try to include the filming notice of what we'll be telling neighbors. And, if we're actually scouting for a new location, I usually come to the town office and say, hey, this is what we're looking for, because sometimes the assessor knows, town manager might know, empty property or abandoned property, something like that, that we could use. And so that's usually how it runs. So we'll get a script. It'll be, so far, the last one was in 202, this one's in 204. I think he has a quick shot for 203 that they're gonna do on the same day as I do. Mine's all interior, he has one exterior shot in the backyard, and that's basically what we've been doing lately. Mine was one shot in the backyard and, shots inside. So, if it's a big inconvenience, if we have gunfire, fire, bright lights on at night, we kind of come to you as fast as we can and say, hey, is this acceptable or not, or when do you want lights out, things like that. Like I said, the last one was contained. Our windows were, our lights were shining just through the windows of the house. And then when we clean up, we put on what we call glow bugs, and so everyone can see, so nobody trips, and safety hazards. So once they load the trucks, get off, we leave.
Board members, anything?
I think I just saw something from Cheryl.
Yeah,
When they
just to
say
hear
that
the
the
crowd
lights,
first.
I'm sorry, when they, Cheryl Cal, we need to introduce myself.
Yes, please.
Cheryl Cowley, Hollinger, 46 Tehadawon, and the subject of this shooting. I want you to know, I was gonna paint my house this year, and one of the reasons they chose my house is it needed paint, so I'm not really flattered
Me too.
by this.
So Castle Rock has offered to paint our house for, but
I wish. But the goal is now October after they're gone. It's amazing how quiet they are. When they're actually shooting, you can hear a pin drop inside and out, because the film evidently picks up the sounds. And my walking through a door when Tim Robbins was performing on the other side of the house got me scowled at. And when they say the lights were shining through the windows, they meant that they were shining them into the windows. They have huge diffusers, they shine the lights at the house, and it actually looked like daylight coming through the windows at night. It was rather amazing. They are very, very considerate and quiet. It's just, the quietness just surprised me a lot. And it doesn't seem like they're gonna be coming for as much as I thought you would, and that's great. That's fine.
But you brought up a good point. We are doing 10 episodes. We did 10 episodes last year. We started June. March.
We started in March, late March, yeah.
Late March, and we'll go till about September 6th. And then we'll be done filming. Don't know what our last day of filming will be, don't know if we'll be there in our last episode. I have no idea what the writers have in mind, but everything will be done September 6th, and we'll clean up and go away and hope for another season.
It's really very interesting. And we had our own little bunch of groupies at the bottom of the driveway. And Mr. Robbins is very nice. And if any of you want a tour, I'm happy to accommodate.
Does the board have anything?
It's gonna be on the bus tour that Cindy was talking
I
about earlier.
I watched the season last year, and I grew up on Tehadawon Road, so I'm enthusiastic about what you're doing there from two perspectives. And as long as you continue to do what you're doing in terms of working with the neighbors and the town officials, then I wish you all good luck.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
If you don't mind, if I ask the chief a question. So, to the extent that there are driving shots, we have to close it, what's the protocol for that? How does that work? Rather than, a single house, private property, okay, that's ostensibly not causing a significant public impact. Closing a road maybe is a different thing. So what's the process there?
it's my discretion, honestly.
Okay.
Public safety, as long as we can shut it off at a decent area. We picked a couple roads, like the end of Neshoba Road, out to Newtown Road. There's no houses, there's nothing there. We looked at those sites, we looked at Bruce Street at the end there, a couple different locations. It doesn't sound like it's gonna be a full day or two, it's gonna be some nighttime shoots, whatnot. But we're gonna try to do the best we can not to inconvenience anybody, citizens or residents.
I guess that's my concern, is that if we're truly closing the road, are we talking about truly closing it, as in there's no bypass? It's
Right.
somebody's got
Full
a
detour.
Somebody's got a detour around it.
Yep.
that it is causing substantive disturbance to folks, so.
Or inconvenience.
Yeah, at a minimum inconvenience. Before we formally decide on, where, it certainly, I would like to know what sort of decision is made on that and where the locations might be, and I would very much expect all of our social media channels to carry that information.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And carry it very clearly.
Yeah.
Not super thrilled about it, but.
Anything else? Are you based out in New England studios when you're doing this?
Yes.
Up at the old Fort Devens.
Yeah, I toured there with the Neshoba Chamber of Commerce. After you had finished last season, I got, you had all kinds of props in one of those.
Yes.
I was absolutely fascinated.
The stages.
I wanted to walk in one of those houses.
Yeah.
They
The
are
half
bringing
built.
significant business to the area.
Yeah.
The pub has been busy, the local antique store for props has been sold out. They are fairly good for our economy. So there is some benefit to the town.
I think it's exciting. How did you find Littleton?
Those were here last year.
Yeah, we were here
Yeah,
last
last
year
year,
for some
yeah.
stuff. We were in Lancaster, and, we wanted to go to Clinton. We were right, this year we're in Harvard, Clinton, Littleton, Hudson, and before we were always up towards Orange, which was our Castle Rock. Our story has expanded a little bit, and we're in Gardner. We're in Gardner also. So, no, whenever you're at a little background, whenever you're at a studio, they give you a 30-mile range.
Okay.
So when you have a 30-mile range, they want you to find locations within that 30 miles because union-wise, when you go outside the 30 miles, they have to put you up and they have to pay you mileage. So we have a crew of 150, as you can tell, for outside that range,
Oh.
which Orange is. They don't want to go too often. They need to go. But so all these great little towns back here. And last year, when Castle Rock did their first season, they were the first TV show in Massachusetts in 33 years.
Wow.
And what was it?
Spencer for Hire.
Spencer for Hire. Yeah.
Gosh.
So since Castle Rock left, the film studio has been solidly booked. We were the only ones there. I think you were there. You had a small movie he was doing. But it was so far from Boston, it was out of that 30-mile range. So people never came there. But our world was defunct mill towns. So we found Orange and we found New England Studios, and so we just, we would look outwards. So we go to Shirley and we just keep going and to find whatever the script needs. And someone passed her house, one of our scouts, and thought it worked.
Perfect.
Saw that it needed a paint job.
I would also clarify for the board that they didn't close Dehadawin to the residents, only for through traffic. If they were going to a resident, anywhere in the residents could come and go. They only had their trucks on one side. They kept them off personal property, kept them on the road on one side, and the residents could get home and get out and move about. They were very considerate neighbors.
What we do for roads is we have two kinds of things. We do an ITC, which we call intermittent traffic control. So if we're doing a scene and we can do the scene safely and let traffic go on either side, we let that happen. The other one is a stunt. Even someone, driving past someone and driving backwards, it's considered a stunt. Like, an actor can't drive and act at the same time. So they put them on a tow dolly and they tow them back and forth. So if we feel that safety, we're going to be on the road. I mean, when we're even on the road and closing the road, we have to keep a lane open for emergency vehicles. We always have to move. But if we feel it's a danger and we're going to be on the road with the car, a car's flipped over, something, smoking, you don't want the public around. It's a danger to them and to us. So that's why we close it, and we do find, there are towns, like I know some towns that said, you can't do a detour more than 5 miles. So if the detour's not there, you gotta find another way or find another road. So we try to get to the chief early and say, this is what we wanna do. We wanna light a car on fire. Where can we do that in your town? We're gonna be filming here and we need to go to a night spot. And, whatever they write, we have to find. And so
Are you gonna set a car on fire?
No.
I'm not saying it won't happen, but
Fire
it's
chief
not.
here?
Do it on Foster Street so they repave it after you're done.
I want you to know the actor lit a cigarette in my house, and because it wasn't a real cigarette even, because they don't smoke in my own set, but he lit a fake cigarette in my house, and because they did, they went and got a permit from the fire department, and then there had to be a pyrotechnical person and his assistant who walked me around the house looking at my smoke detectors to make sure they wouldn't be an issue, and all he did was light a match. It was rather interesting.
And we had a fire detail too from the fire department, I believe.
Did you?
Yeah,
Okay, for that match.
for that one match.
The union thing is really quite fascinating.
Yeah, it's really all about just keeping the crew safe and making sure that, you know, we don't accidentally do something we're not supposed to.
And the liquor is iced tea.
Yeah.
Long Island?
Chief, was this, do you have anything, any comments? You're all set?
I don't, no, one second.
And I want to thank you for coming in.
Thank you for
having
having
us.
us. Appreciate it. Thank you.
We look forward to working again in Littleton, appreciate it.
Wish you luck.
Thanks.
Spend lots of money while you're here.
Thank you.
I'll make sure the board has a memo
Good to see you.
when they start filming next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Chief.
Moving on, Anthony, can you lead us into the planning board assistance grants?
Sure, so Myron's here, and,
Hi, Mary.
come on up. So there's another opportunity, we've been pretty successful in our planning grants that we've made. Some of these planning events that we've had are possible, so this was another opportunity to, so the grants up to $50,000.
Yeah, the maximum grant on this one is $50,000. To make it worthwhile, we're looking for a scope of services that is up to 50. We have the ongoing work for form-based code that's starting. I'm a little bit worried that we don't have a lot of public outreach programmed into that. So the first part of the grant would be to up the public outreach a little bit. Another idea that we've spoken about tangentially is transfer of development rights. And we've identified, in general, a couple of areas of town that we might be comfortable with increased density, perhaps in the Littleton Common and perhaps near the train station. Okay, what would it take to increase the density there and at the same time be able to help large property owners? How do we preserve farms? So starting the discussion on transfer of development rights, we need to learn what it is and you know, what to do to move forward on that. And then the third piece I was looking at is, what did I say?
It's fine.
Yeah.
The third one
Form-based code for
Can you take a
other
deep-
areas.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
thank you. Form-based code for other areas of town. Does it make sense to, if we decide as a town that we want to do some rezoning in the station area, would form-based code would be able to use it there? So we just start exploring that question. The idea is just to use the existing $42,000 that was, we have under contract for form-based code work, use that as the local match. We need a minimum 25% local match, so that easily covers.
Because that was something that was approved by the board, ultimately town meeting, this is coming back to support the planning board request to go for this grant.
Yep. So the request is to, authorization to apply for the grant and to consider the 42 as matchable.
Are we talking about using the entirety of that 42 and saying that we're gonna match 84% of the grant? Or are we just going to use $12,500 of that 42 as the 25%? Like what?
Writing the grant, I would say we've got this much that we're using for form-based code, and we'd like to
We're already
consider that the
doing
match.
And it's already earmarked.
Town meeting already appropriated for form-based code, yeah.
Hearing about the wisdom of transfer of development rights for, probably over 30 years, and I'd love to see it finally materialize in something that can be acted on and adopted. That's a great concept, and the other items as well, but I support what you're going after, appreciate it.
If this is, the grant is ultimately given to us, what's the deliverable that we as a town will see associated with each of these three scopes? What are,
That's one of the questions the grant will ask.
okay.
Well, that I like to put in grant applications. It shows us, this is what the state is getting for the state money that's being put in.
So
I don't have it fleshed out yet.
thought, if I promise not to formally hold you to this, thoughts on what you think the most effective deliverables would be from the services that we purchase with this grant?
Right.
Public forums, written documents, maps, what do you think would be most effective?
Yep, for public outreach, it would be perhaps another public forum on form-based code. For transfer and development rights, it would be the discussions you have to have and deliverables. One would be the sending areas and one would be a map of the receiving areas. And then for, for the
Design criteria.
design criteria, it would be the drawings, the schematics that go with form-based code for one particular area of town.
And in terms of development rights, within that scope of work, as far as the sending areas are concerned, would there be enough money to directly interact with property owners that we would be identifying in this process? I would hate to identify people or pieces of property without actively engaging the property owners, not just on a ad hoc basis, but on a formal basis with the consultant on hand and all of that. Would that fit within this scope, or do you think it's a little too?
Yeah,
as
I was laying out the three possible items to include in the grant, the scope is like this big, and the funding at 50 may not stretch to the whole thing. But certainly we would have to tailor it to what Littleton needs, and what Littleton needs whenever we talk open space is direct communication with those that own the larger tracts of property.
Jump in? Would we be able to send the planning board or yourself to something that an agency within the state is presenting to educate the folks that we are going to trust to navigate this for us? Are there those types of seminars or that type of training available that we can use these funds towards? Because I think we're talking about zoning board, it takes a while to come up to speed on what the zoning is and how can you grant the variance. Planning board, all the more, that's why it's it's not solely why it's a 5-year board, but after 5 years, people are just kind of getting the hang of it.
Exactly.
So there's, if we can make an investment into folks that have made an investment in our town by running and volunteering the time, as well as yourself, to educate on one or some or all of the initiatives, I think that would be a good return on investment for the town to use this money towards that type of education.
Okay, yeah, we can.
Yeah, and we do that, as opportunities come up, and I think Cindy can attest, if there's something with affordable housing, we'll throw it out there for a seminar that might pique some interest there. And we've done it with TAC. I sent Gary LaCroix some information when they had the conference in Worcester, transportation conference. I thought that might be something somebody might be willing to do. And yeah, I think it's a great investment, $50 that they charge for that.
Whatever it is.
Yeah, whatever it is to get people a little bit more of an opportunity to get out there and learn about it.
It gives us the tools, gives the people that, us or.
We definitely send it off, when we get it.
Mr. Nolan?
Pat Mullen, Vice Chair of the Planning Board. There's a couple of things that we currently attend. There's the Citizen Planner Training that's yearly up at Holy Cross. It's a full-day seminar. It's a good jumping off point. I know as a member, I enjoy going up there and attending the seminar. I also feel like it's always a jumping off point and there's nowhere to land. Where's the rest of the information? There's some good websites that we can go to. Again, Citizen Planner Training is accessible to all planning board members and to the public for that matter. So when we are looking at different ideas, we can see what other towns are doing. It's been a great resource for us, but there's always more information that would be helpful to us.
Anna Houston Planning Board. So I also wanted to add onto that, that the form-based code teach-in that is happening this Thursday that Anthony mentioned earlier today is actually very similar to what I think, Chuck, you might be referring to, because it enables everybody to learn about the particular topic and then understand how we can best utilize it in town. So for the TDR work that Maren is recommending, doing something similar to that, another teach-in related to TDR would be very helpful for everybody in town, in addition to the planning board members, to really understand it and then be able to utilize it.
And one step further, if Mr. Chairman, maybe an opportunity, if it doesn't exist, maybe we can work with some folks that you guys know and trust that do seminars, and we can host something and bring in some other communities that are looking at this and, try to build those relationships with surrounding communities and collaborate like we have with Air and Willow Road, and, it's nice to build those bridges as well. So, I'm just looking at another opportunity for us to use the funds. We might in fact get a decent return on as well. Versus, I think having the events down at the middle school are good, but then you end up having a very limited number of folks, and everybody says, we didn't even know about it, and there were postcards that went out, and, so, the PTO is great, but, so it's, if we can get more bang for our buck, I think to Chase's point, what the deliverable is to us, there might be some opportunities there as well.
Good.
So MAPC and MAGIC are two resources that we do use, and I think that through Maren, I'd love it if we held a seminar here and got some information. And made it open to the public, not just to members of the planning board or to elected officials. And if we could bring in on this, I know that a lot of times when MAGIC meets, it's during the week, during regular working hours.
Right.
And so elected officials typically, we're volunteers, we can't take days off just to go attend a seminar all the time. Oh, I know you guys know.
Anything else on the board? No? Look for a motion then, maybe?
I got it. Move that the Board of Selectmen vote to support the planning board's fiscal year 20 planning assistance grant application utilizing the funds allocated at the October 29, 2018 special town meeting, Article 8, Item B, for $42,000 to be expended by the Master Plan Implementation Committee for costs associated with implementation of the master plan, including consulting services for development of form-based zoning amendments as the 25% local match.
Second.
Moving to second, any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mark, thanks for your work.
Now, moving on to the last part of item 4, which has to do with the transfer station. Chris? A topic that interests
Everybody loves.
everybody in town.
Everybody's favorite. It's that time of year.
June 30th.
We tried to push it up a little bit this year. Obviously, we discussed that, trying to get it on a fiscal calendar. So this is really just a meeting for you guys to set the hearing date for the public hearing. We're hoping for June 10th, so that way we can start selling stickers right after that. And then hopefully the new prices can go into effect July 1st or thereafter. I don't know if you want me to talk about it, or if you want to just wait till the hearing, or I guess it's
up to the board. It just maybe, I know you have different options we could use, or...
Yeah, really it comes down to, you can do anything. It's totally up to you. I've given you kind of, option A is kind of what I think is the best all-around option. Option B has it where we don't raise the sticker prices, we dump all of the increase on the bag fees, and option C is the reverse of that. Doing it just with stickers and leaving the bag fees alone. I kind of tried to pick a happy medium with option A.
But those are essentially our two, we slide one farther this way, we have to slide the other farther.
Exactly. And then the spreadsheet that I gave you is, I know the last time we met, it was some discussion about what are other areas doing, towns, so I kind of did look at all the surrounding areas. I called Acton, Groton, Pepperell. Basically, I tried to find comparable sized towns that have the same structure. There are other, like Harvard has a transfer station, but it's not pay-as-you-throw. That one doesn't, that's not relevant to us at all. So I've kind of tried to pick some of these. 3 of them actually haul their own trash, and that's why the sticker prices are wildly different. I actually had to call Acton because I didn't know how they did it. I said to him, I was like, I'm gonna get myself fired. You're charging half what I do, and I can't cover my bills. And he says we haul our own trash. So 3 of those don't really make sense. But if you look at the Air and the Sudbury one, if we actually went with their model, we would be plus a substantial amount. So I think we're actually doing fairly well, keeping our prices comparable to the rest of them.
Now, on the bottom of each one of these, you have a minus number. Is that what it's costing?
Yeah, so that's
each
what-
one of the towns?
So the negative on ours, so what I did is I took their pricing model and I inputted is if we adopted their pricing model. So if you look at Air, their pricing model, we would have a $24,000 surplus. If you look at Groton's and we use their pricing model, we would have I can't read it from here, but it looks like $93,000 negative. So
Oh, I'm sorry.
I know, we have it in Excel. It's,
We'll have it for the next.
yeah, for the actual public hearing, I can have it in Excel, we can blow it up a little bit. So this was just trying to show that if we use their pricing models, what it would look like in our town. Just to kind of give us a comparison of what we're charging versus what these other towns are charging.
Not that I have to go into great detail on it tonight and let each member speak on it, but already I've had people tell me I can't afford to do any more on the prices of the bags, but that's just one viewpoint that's probably going to be brought up when we set the date for the hearing. Any comments from the board?
Just one comment so that when I review this in more detail, I can make some more sense of it. Can you help me understand how a town hauling their own material fits into this?
Yeah, so we, depending on where we haul to, so currently right now we haul our trash to Fitchburg, some of our recycling goes to Groton, and our plastic bottles go to Billerica, and our glass goes up to Keene. We have to hire a contractor to haul that material. It's $100 and something, about $140 to haul it to Fitchburg, it's only $90 to haul it to Groton, it's $300 to haul it to Keene and Billerica. We haul multiple loads a week, so it's a huge expense to haul trash.
So you need your own.
But if you're gonna do it in-house, you're looking at 2 trucks at $250,000 a piece, plus you either have to pull a staff member out of highway to do it because you don't have enough staff to cover the truck. So in the end, they've had their equipment. If you had trucks, I'd say do it. You could do it and you'd save a small fortune. To purchase trucks, it's about a 20-year payback and the truck lasts 20 years, so it's not a huge savings. If we already had dump trucks roll-off trucks, then it would, I'd say, yeah, absolutely, we could do it.
Are those other towns bearing some of that cost then in essentially a hidden subsidy,
No,
staffing is
yeah,
hidden someplace else
I
or
asked
something
that. So
like that?
Groton's a hard one because Groton actually takes our materials, they sort it further, and then they sell it to different places and make profit on it. Acton just ends up hauling, they save all their money in hauling costs, so. We're all hauling basically the same place, and we're all paying the same tipping fees, it comes down to the hauling costs. We're actually, hopefully, I talked to Groton, they just came online with a glass crushing plant, so we're actually gonna start hauling our glass, hopefully there in July, which will save us about $10,000 a year.
It's Keene now.
It's going to Keene, correct.
So which is the most expensive haul price?
Absolutely, it's $330 a load. So we're gonna be able to go to Groton now, it's gonna go from $330 to $90. And the cost of the material is $10 a ton cheaper to go to Groton, so. So I don't know, like I said, I mean, if you don't wanna raise bag fees, we just have to raise sticker prices. Or we have to subsidize it through the taxpayers. I guess that's the only other option.
I think with you, that's gonna be more palatable for folks. Give me a little bump of the sticker. I mean, just keep it in the same price of the bags.
We can talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely, it has to just kind of be
But
floated
that's-
out there and people have to have that conversation.
Yeah, that's already been what I heard.
Right.
Yeah, and the hard part right now too is our senior stickers are about a third of the cost of our, so we're trying to bear almost all the costs of the
And
transfer.
yet they make about half of the,
And they make at least half, they're actually starting to tip a little bit more beyond the half, so we're trying to bear most of the
less
costs.
than half the users
Are
are
paying
subsidizing over half the users.
Correct, correct. So in the proposal, we're trying to get that back in line to at least 50/50.
If you increase the age, would that, aren't you at 60 right now?
Yeah, we're at 60, correct.
If you went to 65, would that make a difference?
I'd have to go back and look, I don't think we don't track, we only track, if you're over 60, you get the ticker, we don't, the sticker, we don't track if you're 60, we don't track by age. So it would have, if we did that, we'd have to do it this year, and then we'd have to see the difference, but I don't know the answer.
Because we had that discussion last year.
Looks like Ed Mullen has his arm.
I'm not sure if he's raising his hand or he's just trying to get comfortable. No questions.
Any other questions from the board?
That's all I've got right now. I mean, I don't want to make you repeat yourself because we do have to have a public hearing.
Right. I mean, we've had conversations offline, just about, everything's going up, nobody's taking it, it's not going to China.
I mean, the glass thing's gonna be kinda cool, because Groton's telling us when they crush it, we actually have to haul it back here. And I actually have a sample at the DPW, it's sand, it's the consistency of sand, so we're actually gonna start using it, backfilling drain lines. So it'll be kind of a more green thing, we're actually reusing the product. Yeah, we're hoping that it actually will become adopted by DEP for septic sand. So it's a pretty neat thing, we're gonna haul it back and we'll reuse the product, so it'll be kinda cool.
That is kind of cool.
Yeah.
Even if we had to add in some other.
Yeah, you can supplement, yeah, we mix it with stone or other sand, or, yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Ready for a motion?
Yes, please.
To move that the Board of Selectmen vote pursuant to Town Code Chapter 181 to schedule a public hearing for Monday, June 10th, 2019 at 7:30 PM on the fee structure and regulations for use of the Town of Littleton Transfer Station effective July 1, 2019, and further to invite input from the general public, the Board of Health, and Highway Department.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, Chris.
Thanks,
Thank
Chris.
you.
Drive safe.
Now to the booklet. You'd like
That
to
me?
come up? Yeah, please. Fill us in with this. Any lead, Anthony, you want to give him this?
No, I'll let Dick explain. I've had the opportunity to be briefed by Dick and then Chairman Gravy, so we've heard.
Joe was here too.
Yeah.
Oh, Joe, I'm sorry, you were there.
I forgot, Joe.
I was in the corner.
That's right. We should acknowledge this is a joint meeting with the FinCom and
Yes.
school committee.
In this-
So I think Dick can take it from.
Okay, I'm Dick Hingston from Gisty and Hingston CPA firm. We do the audit for the town. Thanks for letting us do the audit again this year. I'd like to start with the financial statements first, or the financial position. Feel free, I always think these work better if they're a conversation than a presentation, so if you have any questions, you can interrupt, interject anything anytime. I really don't mind.
And that's for the
Yep.
Finance committee, too.
Finance committee too, yeah.
Please interrupt.
School committee's gonna be.
So the town's still in.
They were aware of that, right, school committee, obviously.
So the town's still in good financial position at June 30th, 18. It retained its AAA bond rating during the year. And I consider the bond rating as kind of the report card of the town. And Standard & Poor's does a deep dive into the economy of the town, the management of the town, and the finances, and the government structure of the town and the finances of the town. So they deem that you are still worthy to be a AAA. It's based on your budgetary results and your reserves, basically, the financial part. They also look at your financial policies and determine if those are to the quality that they want. And so I think that having a triple bond rating is the thing that's going to well, I know you have a lot of future borrowing or potential borrowing in your plans, and that means that the town will be borrowing at the cheapest interest rate that's available for any municipality at that time. So it's a good place to be, the AAA. I mean, to be, so,
You opened the door for me, so.
yeah.
Is there any difference in a Moody's AAA and a Standard & Poor's AAA?
Well, right now, in the Northeast, I was just with somebody who works with S&P and does it all the time, does a lot of work with both of them. And right now, S&P is usually a tick higher than Moody's, because they have, their bond rating favors the economic wealth of the communities and in a little higher factor than Moody's does. And that's helped the Northeast a lot. So a lot of places, about 5 years ago, got an uptick from Standard & Poor's that they may not have gotten from Moody's.
And just to be clear, you're saying that some communities might be AAA with Standard & Poor's and AA with Moody's.
Yeah, so not AA, but there's an in-between, yeah. So, but and one of the questions that we had at this place who was a Moody's, and they're gonna go try to get an S&P rating, was does eventually the market start taking into account there's a change in that, but it's not a national thing, it's just the Northeast, and it's because the Northeast has a much wealthier community base, and so I mean, it's not a false bond rating at all, it's just Moody's and Standard & Poor's have different metrics. Actually, their overall metrics are 10% for management, 30% for finances. They're all the same, but within those metrics, they have different
Wealth factor
thoughts.
gives us a little bit of an uptick,
Yeah.
okay.
So,
Thank you.
yep. So I'd just like to show you a few things in the financial statements. On page 8, it's not PDF page 8, it's the actual page 8 of the financials. It shows a 10-year history of your free cash. And if you look at it, you can see it kept going up and up until 2017, and then it went down $3 million. That was an estimate. I just looked online today, and it wasn't certified at the time we did the report. It was now. It's $5,143,000. So even though it went down $3 million this year, it's not as bad as it sounds, because what happened is the free cash went down, but it got moved to the debt stabilization fund and to the capital stabilization fund. So they went up 2.9. And if you look just above that, there's the components of fund balance, and there's a restricted, committed, assigned, unassigned. So your free cash resides in the unassigned, and your stabilization fund, reserve for debt and reserve for capital, resides in the committed. So you see the committed went up $4 million, and the unassigned went down. So this kind of, and the bond rating still, even though they like to look at the unassigned, if you show them that it's that the committed is made up of stabilization fund money, which can be, it's committed towards debt and for capital, but you could change it, just by a vote within the town. The restricted portion is what's restricted externally, like grants or something by statute, like a school lunch fund. So the committed, assigned, and the unassigned have more flexibility in them. Page 71 has the budget versus actual. And this is where the town has always done well. They've been very conservative in their budgeted revenues. So if you can look to the far right column, it says the variance with the final budget. You see that it came in $2.1 million, $2,140,408 above your budgeted amount for your actual revenues. This is what generates your free cash. So by being conservative in your budgeted estimates, it limits what you can give out during the year, but it creates free cash that you regenerate every year. So you use free cash during the year, and then you regenerate it by having conservative budget estimates. And you also came into the good on the budget in total on the expense side. So you generated about $2.4 million worth of free cash by conservative budgeting. The deficit under the DPW is the snow and ice deficit, and that got raised on the recap sheet.
I'm gonna jump in again.
Absolutely.
Just relative to the way we estimate right now, it's seen as a positive that we are able to take that money. If we estimate it's gonna cost us $1 million to do something, it costs us $900,000 to
Yep.
do something. That $100,000 goes into the undesignated of the free cash.
Yeah.
Is that a good practice to have a 10%, or, I mean,
Well,
with a building project, we typically have contingencies.
Yeah.
Is there a percentage?
well,
that
on the
is
expense
safe?
side, it's, you know, that's why I think it's more important to be, it's important on both sides, but it's important to be conservative on the revenue side, because as time goes on and budgets don't go up, they get restricted more. And if there's a level funded, then you get less and less turn back of appropriation every year. So, you know, a lot of times people like to have their expenditure side more closely budgeted because they don't want people to spend it just because they got it. So if you built in a 10% surplus into everybody's budget, it might not end up being a 10% surplus. So that's
Delicate dance.
yeah, yes. But that's why the revenue side has been so good for you. You've always been conservative with that part, and it's always replenished your free cash. Another one that I just wanted to show you that I think is a pretty good schedule is the debt schedule we have, and that's on page 39 and 40. So what this does is this identifies, so this identifies every piece of debt that you have. And what I think is a good piece of it is it has fiscal year maturity. So you can tell when things are going to be coming off, and it might provide you some flexibility in your budget. So if you look at in 2019, you go down about 6 or 7 down. You can see that in 2019, which you felt it in the budget, you'll feel it in the 20 budget, that there's a $248,000 piece of debt that went away. So sometimes you feel it in the budget and gives you budget flexibility, and sometimes the taxpayers just feel it because it was a debt exclusion. So a debt exclusion, it just means the tax rate will go down. But if it was not a debt exclusion, it means that you'll have more budgetary flexibility. So I think that this is a good schedule for you to, and then down the bottom part, it shows all the enterprise funds. Something I talk about in the management letter is the net OPEB liability. And on page 77, that shows, I'm only going to do a couple more of these, that shows the change in your OPEB liability over the years. This is going to be a 10-year schedule. So it goes, if you look about 3/4 of the way down, it says town's net OPEB liability ending, and it's $16,605,957. That's what we're reporting in your financial statements for your net OPEB liability. You have, and this is for the town and the water. It doesn't include the electric department. The electric department has its own separate schedules in here. So you guys are very well funded, which I'll get into that later. But that $16,605,000, this is the last table I wanted to show you, is on page 57. And it's called a sensitivity analysis. So when the actuaries do your actuarial studies, it's at the very bottom of the 57. So when the actuaries do studies, they have many assumptions built in. And they have what they estimate that you're going to earn on your investments. They have mortality tables. They have what they estimate the healthcare trend rates are going to be. So right now, they estimated that you were going to earn like about 7.5%. So what they actuaries, these come from the actuarial reports, what they have to do is just to tell you just how much a 1% swing in some of these assumptions would mean. And so I like to show the good way. So right now, your liability is 16,605,000, and that's if you would earn 7.5%. If you earn 8.5% for the duration, it would go down $3 million. So you'd be $3 million to a less liability in your financial statement. And on the next page, there's a sensitivity analysis on the healthcare trend rate at the top of the page. So again, going the good way, right now they're saying 8% decreasing to 5%, because that's what they think the healthcare trend rate will be, premiums. And if it was 7% going down to 4% instead, then your liability would be $4 million, approximately $4 million less. So a 1% swing on both of those would make your 16 million six liability about 9 million six. So these liabilities are estimates based on assumptions, and they're not just wild assumptions. They're most of them they have to get some kind of backup for. But it just shows you that all these assumptions can change these things. And I went one way, and it could go the other way too. And one of the biggest things that could change, and it happened like I think 2 or 3 years ago, was mortality tables changed. And so people were going to live longer in the mortality tables that came out, and actually started using, and most everybody's liability took a big jump then. So there's a lot of schedules, right? In the last 2 and 3 years, we've added a lot of information about your OPEB trust, and just before that, we added a lot of information and schedules about your pension systems. So what used to be a 2-page footnote is now probably about 8 or 9 pages and 6 schedules. And because you have the electric light, it's 9 schedules. And just so, one of the other things I'm just going to mention is in one of the tables it tells you.
I'm sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you. Before we get away from the discount rate question though, because our OPEB liability is so sensitive to that discount rate number, how realistic is 7.5% compared to what we're actually seeing?
That's funny. My next comment was going to be, there's a table in the back that shows the rate of return. So it's only the 2-year table, and it's on page, if you want to get to it, page 79. So it was 8.66 in 2017 and 5.9 in 2018. So
And are these numbers that are fairly standard across the municipal finance world, the 7.5% discount rate? The reason I ask that is that over the last 2 years, we've had collectively a hell of a bull market, and if we're, projecting out for the next 20 years to look like the last few, how realistic is that?
Well, that's the actuary's assumptions. But if I can tell you that the reason that you're getting the 7.5% is because you are so well funded. There's one of the, in the standard, it says unless you are substantially funded, then you have to use the municipal bond rate as a discount rate, which would be about 4% less than what you've got to use.
So that liability balloons from 16 to 30 plus.
Yes, and so, but because you are so well funded, and I was at a meeting like this 2 days ago, and Friday actually, and they have a 3.87% discount rate because they were not funded enough, and their liability is just, it's a similar size community, but by its magnitude, it's very many multiples higher than yours because of it. So
I mean, that sounds fine, but how does the fact that we're well funded mean that we can achieve a better return?
I was just telling you the downside. The actuaries, I think that's a fairly standard one. It's close. Between 6.5 and 7.5 I've seen. The Middlesex, I think, is 7.5 too. That's what their actuaries are using. So it's either it's 7.5 or 7.25. But they had been up at 8.5, Middlesex, for a few years, and then they, is that right, Steve?
The retirement system is trying to get it down even below where it is now.
Is it 7.5 right now?
It's 7.5 now, we're trying to get it to the 7% range.
Yeah.
And I'll be having a conversation with our actuary on the OPEB side, because that 7.5 is high.
Yeah.
And we'd like to see that come down a bit.
You know,
as it comes down, the liability's gonna go up.
yeah, there's different, it's funny to hear Steve say to have it go down, because there's differing opinions on that, because a lot of managers want to see it go up, you know, because it makes their financial statements look good. Steve's taking a more realistic, what he considers a more realistic view on it. But you're not on an island with that 7.5% discount rate, because that's, you know, that's.
I guess that right there is
Yeah.
the fundamental core of my question.
Yeah.
How far out of the norm are we?
Yeah, I wouldn't say we are, because Middlesex is using it, and I believe Essex, you know, regional retirements are using it too. So that's all I was really gonna talk about in the financials, but I'm glad to answer anybody's questions on it. And actually, if at another time you wanted to sit down and go through them, I'd be happy to do that with anybody too, so.
Okay, Dick, just, and these are probably items I asked earlier when we met
Yep.
before, but just for the public, and I'd asked Steve to chime in too on the, in the management letter, the.
Yep, I was gonna get into that too.
Are you still gonna get into it?
Yeah, I was gonna get into that, I was just not gonna say anything.
Oh,
But
all
I'll be
right, I'll
glad
wait
to.
for you to get into that first and then ask a question.
I don't mind you asking me a question.
All right, it's just, there's the GASB 75, the
Yep.
transfers between funds, kind of straightforward. Under the special revenue funds issue, the first sentence notes that we have 200 special revenue funds, which is, whoa, why do we have that? But my understanding is, a lot of that is certain grant programs kind of necessitate having their
Yep.
own individual fund. There's not a whole lot we can do about.
Right, it's grants, revolving funds, and other special funds that are required by either your choice or by statute to set up, to segregate.
So then on the three topics raised in this year's letter, Steve, is there anything there that's troubling or you quibble with, or, you know, they look like items that could be addressed fairly easily going forward?
The transfers between funds was a recurring.
You know what, can I just, because I'm not sure everybody has, do you mind if I just do it?
By all means. I didn't
All right,
know.
nope, that's okay. So the first one is the implementation of the new standard. And so what happened is, in the prior letters, we had kind of thrown out that there was gonna be a standard change. And so what happened is, there used to be a phase-in of the OPEB liability, and so they took the liability, net OPEB liability, and they phased it in over a number of years. So, and they called it, in the financial statements, it was the net OPEB obligation, so a little different, it's an accounting language. But now the whole thing had to be put in, and it affected this year. So there was a $760,000 prior period adjustment put into your financial statements to recognize what the liability would have been last year if the new standard had been in effect. It still doesn't have the entire OPEB liability, net OPEB liability for the electric light, because they're on a different fiscal year, and their implementation date is next year, so they'll have a prior period adjustment next year. But one of the things that I wanted to mention is that in one of the schedules back here, it shows that you guys are 35% funded, 35.16 of the liability is funded, up from 29.84 last year. So, and the light departments is 56. So you guys are in a good place. I mean, and so as a frame of reference, the Middlesex has been trying to fund the pension liability for about 35 years, and they're 49% funded. So in about 10 years, you guys are 35% funded. So
How much of that is just a function of the market? I mean, my 401K looks a hell of a lot better this year than it did 2 years ago, too.
a lot of it has to do with the market, but you guys have put a lot of money into it too. I mean, you guys have made a concerted effort to make much more than most communities. I mean, you're back when the latest data for in the data, DLS has data bank reports, and the latest data is 2016, And that's when you guys were only 15% funded, and you were in the top 10 then. So, I mean, I'm sure you're in the top 10 or top 5 in this Commonwealth for funding of OPEB liability. But the data isn't there.
Which is a reflection of management and financial choices, not just a reflection of a rising tide.
Correct, yeah, it's both. I mean, it's investing it and, you know, it's having good rates of return, and I'm just not sure if that's still gonna be it. I mean, one of the things that, the Pension Reserve Investment Trust also invests pension funds, so they invest all the state retirees' contributions. And so that's, right now, you have in a certain, I think it's called Commonwealth Financial Services. Another option is PRIT. And I think, Steve, you've looked at PRIT too, haven't you? Have you given any thought to PRIT as far as investment?
I've looked.
Yeah, so that's another option. And the thing with PRIT is that they have a little more flexibility in their investment vehicles. Like right now, they can invest in realty trusts and things like that you typically can't invest with, so I mean, I'm not suggesting that you would, but it's always good to look at other options on that, and I think that's a good option too.
There's more than just those two options, there's a number of.
There's yeah, but there's many options on that. The next one was the transfers between funds, and this is just simply an accounting mechanism. And in the past, when this town votes to move funds between one fund and another at town meeting, there's typically a revenue account and an expenditure, a transfer in and a transfer out account. And it makes it easier to do the end of year Schedule A. It makes it easier to make sure that your budgeted transfers were made. So it's because there's a budget amount and you see the budget charge against it. And it makes my financial statements easier too. So this year, I think, I don't know exactly why, but they were just making, several of them, they just made between fund balance accounts instead of using the operating accounts. I don't really know, but I have a feeling it was more because they were converting to the new system and they didn't want to bother setting up new accounts that they were only going to use for a year. So, but it did cause a little bit of headaches, and it probably did when they were trying to do the Schedule A at year end. So we just recommended that they use the transferring revenue and expenditure accounts for these.
That hadn't been an issue in prior years?
Had not been, no.
So your read is it had as much to do with munis implementation?
I just think that, during the conversion, they would have had to make new revenue and expense accounts in the old system, and they were moving out of it. So that's my guess. I don't have a certainty.
The issue has been resolved, we don't do
Right.
that anymore.
Okay.
And then, as we were talking about, there was the special revenue accounts. There was 11 out of the 200 that were in deficits. These 3 are the larger ones, and they were, the rest of them were under $500. So they're not material to the financial statements, but I just thought it was important to point them out, and eventually they have to be taken care of, cleared up. And so I don't know if some of them may have got cleared up. They didn't get cleared up within the first few months of fiscal year 19, so I'm not sure if they will have been by now. And the next 2 comments are from the prior year, so we just give you a status of it. So that the 2 of them deal with Single Audit Act work, and they're both, there was not a standard, but there was, in the new, it's called Uniform Guidance for Federal Grants. They wanted you to have an internal control document that addresses, I identified in these next 2 comments, what they want you to have addressed in it, and rules over, and how you're gonna handle compliance issues for purchases, large purchases. And the purchase rules are different for federal programs than they are for the Chapter 30B. So I tried to address all this. Right now, I put it in here as a management letter comment. If we had to do a single act audit, which is a more detailed grant audit, then this would probably end up being a finding that would end up in your financial statement reports, yeah, because you didn't have these documents. You're probably never gonna have a single audit again, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't have what the federal government wants you to have for internal control documents. This is because the schools generally handle the largest amounts of the town's federal grants. It's probably going to fall onto their plate to do it. And MASBO, which is the Mass Association of School Business Officers, they have a really nice template that most of the places I go to that don't have regional schools, they use that as a template, and it meets all the criteria that they have in here. But it's just, I put some links in last year. This won't be in last year. I just wanted to have it in for a couple of years to show you the status. That one year we put in as a finding, next year the status. If it was something very serious, it would stay in there as a management letter comment until it was corrected. But this is something that I'll probably talk to the school business manager again and ask him to look at the MASBO site and try to work with the template. So that's all I have right now, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Board, Amy? Mr. Crowley?
Joe, yes, I'd like to, if you were asked what the one single thing we could do better at, what would that be?
Well, I know that you've got a lot of borrowing, potential borrowing in your future, so I would just say, just be careful on using too much reserves going forward, because once you get your AAA, and it takes a certain amount of reserves and a certain amount of financial equity to get there, and once you're there, it's not like you're overtaxing people to keep piling it up. Once you're there, you're there. You don't have to grow more than a AAA. But it's nice to stay at a AAA because every borrowing you do from now on, you're going to be getting the best rate on the market that municipals can get. So I say just be careful with your reserves.
Thank you.
Finance Committee? All set?
No.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think there was
sorry.
one thing that just popped into my mind. Your comment on the grants and the schools having probably the most impact on that. Have you actually discussed that with them? I know they have a different audit and all that. I mean, how did...
Have I discussed this document?
The issue with the grants and the new government regulations.
Yeah, I've talked to Steve about it, and he's aware of it, but it was never determined whose plate it was going to be on.
Right.
So, I mean, it's just in my experience, I'm not trying to throw it at Steve, but in my experience, because the schools handle the bulk of it, and it becomes less of an issue in a lot of places that are not going to have a single audit, because it's only for places that single audit is required when you have over $750,000 worth of federal expenditures. So you're not close to that right now.
Okay.
So other things seem to, the places that have the single audits, most of them do have these documents.
So it's a good thing to do, but it's not an imminent danger.
It's not an imminent danger until some year you get over $750,000.
Right, and then,
finding, yeah.
Yeah.
So hopefully
you don't want to be too far afield, right?
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dick.
Okay. Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you. No action necessary.
Town meeting recap.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, there's a couple things that we can do immediately, just to talk about. We filed a home rule petition for special legislation. That was our annual town meeting, Article 21. So I have the certified copy right now on my desk. We're having our consultants do plain language definitions and breaking down the sections of that. And we're also going to draft a letter on the board's behalf that's going to be delivered to Senator Eldridge and Representative Arcieros.
Share that with us before.
Yes, yeah, certainly, yeah. That will eventually get to them.
Chase and I need to meet and with or without the rest of the group and kind of dive
I asked,
We have to do our own debrief.
yeah, I asked for everything back by Friday, I'm hoping from staff and from the consultants, so if that happens, I'll forward it off to you guys for review, and then maybe we can take care of that the following week if that's enough time. And the next thing is the owner's project manager for the library design. That was special town meeting Article 5. And normally this, on PMBC projects, it's just the chairman of the PMBC and the chief procurement officer would enter into the contracts with the, in this case, the OPM. But because this was, when we went out to bid for our current OPM for the space needs, that was a Board of Selectmen's project and bid. So what we're doing now is we're going to, in developing that bid, we always leave the option to continue on using that company, that firm, which is Vertex, yeah, and issue a notice to proceed for the next phase. So if we're happy with them, we can have them continue on till eventually the library's built or wherever else we do in town. So PMBC had taken, did you have a meeting last week? I know they were trying
We did,
to.
yes.
Yeah, so you, then they took the favorable action to continue on with Vertex.
Just a minute, we have to get Steve back in the room.
All right. So, what
I
would
was
be?
under the knife, I wasn't present.
You weren't there, Ed?
Big faker.
They give you something good, Ed?
What's that?
Did they give you something good?
You know what's funny is they didn't even give me a nerve block. And
Motrin.
And I didn't request narcotics, so.
Bourbon?
That's what I've been doing since I got home.
Steve, so I was just explaining to the board that we're utilizing the bid that we did for, that the selectmen did for the space needs, and which brought us Vertex, and now we're using that option to continue on with Vertex in the library project.
Correct.
So, what the proposed motion does is authorize the PMBC to execute the notice to proceed with Vertex and now act as the owner of the project going forward.
Can we do that without a contract?
Yeah, so we have a contract in place, so I talked to Jenny just before coming down here. So because there's a contract in place, all we're doing is doing the notification to proceed with the next step.
That's fine.
Yeah.
And then PMBC met in a special meeting on Thursday night last week to review the proposal from Vertex relative to the standard percentages that one would expect from an OPM, as well as looking at the budget that the architect put together. The architect's budget for the OPM was a little bit on the low side. Vertex is a little bit on the high side, but by and large, you know, it's acceptable, it's in the range. So with prudent management of the OPM, hopefully we can bring that cost down. They put together obviously a conservative proposal so that they wouldn't, you know, go over. You don't want to go back to the well. So, and it's been, Kevin's been good to work with, so. Anything else you need on my part?
No.
You guys voted favorable action then?
Yes.
One more point, Steve. We don't, if Vertex is basically time material.
Yep.
So when when they bill out final bill, then the rest comes back to the town.
Well, it's not a lump sum, so we don't get anything back. It's just that if we don't expend everything that they've put in the proposal, then we don't have to be obligated to spend all that money.
Good.
So we need two motions?
So, yeah, and the motion in your packet is different. I needed to amend number 2, so when you get to that, if we could just read the one that's on the screen.
You're looking for two separate motions?
Yes. Yes.
I'll move that the Board of Selectmen vote as authorized at the May 6, 2019 annual town meeting under Article 21 to petition the general court for special legislation establishing the Littleton Common Smart Sewer District within the town of Littleton.
Second. Motion's been made and seconded. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? And number 2?
Move that the Board of Selectmen vote as authorized at the May 6, 2019 special town meeting under Article 5 to authorize the Permanent Municipal Building Committee to execute a notice to proceed with the Vertex Companies Incorporated of Weymouth, Mass. For owner's project management and give the PMBC the authority to manage and oversee the project and to act as the owner under said contract.
Second.
Some discussion real quick. This is as part of the 1.5 voted at town meeting, right? That's where it's.
Part of it, yeah.
Just confirm that, yep.
Yeah, part of it's for Vertex and part of it's for Johnson & Roberts.
Architect.
Yep.
Anything else? Okay, moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Rich. Ed. Mark.
Anna, Robin.
Anna.
Number 8, there's nothing on the,
So, no, I was trying to look at some stuff for office hours, which I'm gonna defer to when Nina gets here, and we can come up with a plan together. So I withdrew that at the last minute before I finalized the agenda, so I have nothing new.
You got 30 more seconds if you want to take
I
a minute.
I didn't know if anybody, I'm very impressed that was picked up on the agenda, the 1 minute. Very good, Chuck.
okay, how about minutes?
And we do have some minutes to board.
Just curious, I mean, they both look fine to me, but how did this one from February 25th hang out there? And
So, those two were, well, it was supposed to be Jen Gibbons was supposed to do it. She was not getting back to us, and we just said, you know what, we're all set. We'll take it back, so that's.
So Diane watched the tape later on and.
We did, yeah,
Okay,
we did.
fine.
Looking for a motion, Mr. Chair.
Yes, please.
Move that the Board of Selectmen vote to approve the meeting minutes of February 25th, 2019, and April 22nd, 2019.
Second.
Made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Now. Executive session.
She just went to Matt herself. She wasn't at the email.
We're going to go to executive session, but I wanted to read why.
It's got to be part of the motion.
Motion.
It's in the motion, Joe.
Okay.
But that doesn't say what 1 and 4 are, but,
It was, in a broad sense, it's to protect personal
confidentiality
financial,
on
confidential.
security and.
Yeah,
and
personal financial information and confidentiality on security of what will be a public facility.
And I would move that the Board of Selectmen vote pursuant to MGL Chapter 30A, Section 21, subsection A, clauses 1 and 4 to convene in executive session.
And then are we going to adjourn after? Or?
Right.
Yeah,
We're not gonna
No
convene.
intent of going back.
With no intention of coming back into open session.
Okay, second?
Okay, roll call, Cindy?
Oh,
Steve. Thank you.
Yeah, and we're inviting the marijuana working group members to join us, right?
Yeah, Anna and Ed.
Anna and Ed.
Jason?
2 other folks?
I'm in favor.
Paul?
Aye.
Joe? Aye. Thank you all for watching. And we're going into executive session. session.